employment rates hit a record high this year as more women and older residents joined the workforce amid a tight labour market. The labour force participation rate rose for a second consecutive year. A record 66.7% of residents aged 15 and above were actively working or actively seeking work. Our rates for women participating in the workforce rose from 50.9% in 2003 to 58.1%. Now, this could be due to better education and more employment opportunities in the services sector. For older residents aged 55 to 64, labour force participation rates climbed from 47.3% in 2003 to 67.1% in 2013. Now, this is attributed to their better educational profile and tripartite efforts to raise their employability. Now, the employment rate for residents aged 25 to 64 also rose to a new high of 79%. The employment rate for older residents aged 55 to 64 also surpassed last year's high of 64%, hitting 65%, and this meets the government's target 2 years ahead of time. The growth in real median monthly income also grew for full-time employed residents. It increased from 2.5% last year to 3.9% this year. And joining me in studio to discuss this is Dr. Amy Khor, Senior Minister of State from the Ministry of Manpower. So, Doctor, thank you very much for coming in today.
You're welcome.
So the numbers overall look very positive, more women and more elderly joining the workforce. What do you attribute this to?
Well, I think that indeed the numbers shows that the efforts of the tripartite partners, the government, the employers and the unions in encouraging older workers and back-to-work women to return to the workforce as well as to improve their employability is showing positive results. And I think that government measures like the retirement and re-employment legislation, the special employment credit, which incentivize employers to employ older workers, our Work Pro initiative, which support employers in implementing workplace age management practices as well as flexible workplace arrangements, is helping to make it more attractive for employers to hire older workers as well as back-to-work women, as well as to encourage this group to return back to the workforce. I think our tight foreign manpower policy is also helping to get more employers to look towards this group of workers, to tap this group of potential workers to meet their manpower needs.
So, Doctor, which sectors have been hiring the most and which specific occupations are we talking about?
Well, for the older workers, because of their lower educational profile, so most of them will be hired in rank and file jobs, generally in the services sector, in retail, F&B, hospitality, logistics, cleaning, landscaping, security. Of course, there are also some who are hired in other sectors, for instance, even in banking, in media and so on. But generally, they will not be the frontline staff so that they can be on flexible work arrangements.
Right, so given the ongoing labour crunch, what more can be done to encourage more women, even more, to re-enter the workforce?
Well, first of all, I think employers must adopt and continue to adopt a new and progressive mindset. They need to really understand the needs of their existing staff as well as potential employees. Adopt progressive work management practices, put in place flexible work arrangements in order to be able to attract this group of workers, whether it's back-to-work women or older workers, because they need to help their employees work as well as fulfill their family commitments. We will encourage the employers to really tap on the assistance that we have, whether it's Work Pro, to put in place such progressive workplace practices in order to be able to attract them. And indeed, actually, many employers are already doing this, and I will encourage them to build on these efforts so that we can transit to a manpower lean and productivity-driven economy.
So, Doctor, we've seen new highs and we've even met some targets ahead of time. So going forward, what other new targets do you have, perhaps getting more help for the disabled community to join the workforce?
Indeed, I mean, for special employment credit, it applies not just to older workers, but also to the disabled community, those who are able and wants to work. and we will continue to do more in terms of even working very closely with our tripartite partners to organize, say, workshops, as well as develop toolkits, so to help them with best practices, encourage them to tap on our various assistance program to put in place such practices so that they can attract the local talent pool.
And of course, create a more inclusive society.
Definitely. I mean, we are committed to an inclusive growth program, and we are committed to helping especially our low-wage workers to improve their skills so that they can get better pay and better jobs. So in our inclusive program, for instance, we encourage and support employers in putting in place practices, redesigning their jobs, redesigning the work processes so that they can give higher value jobs and therefore better pay to the workers, as well as send the workers for training so that they can improve their productivity and they can improve their skills through training and get better jobs as well as better pay.
Okay, Doctor, we also saw stronger real income growth. So let's hear from one economist on what he has to say about this.
The top 20th or the top 30th percentile, which is the skilled, the more wealthy individuals, their income might have increased faster than this. So which basically means that the gap might have widened over the last 10 years. We need to put in more effort to make sure that we manage this gap.
So, Doctor, real income growth in the last 5 years, very encouraging for the 20th percentile. What more do you think can be done, though, to help this group?
Well, indeed, the numbers are encouraging for this group, the 20th percentile. In fact, their real income growth over the last 5 years is about 1.7% per annum, which is quite comparable to that in the 50th percentile at 1.9% per annum. And in fact, this has offset the decline in real income growth for the 20th percentile of 0.1% in the previous 5 years. As I've noted earlier, we are committed to an inclusive growth for all Singaporeans, and one of our priority really is to help low-income earners, to raise their skills and raise their wages. So one of the programs, for instance, that we have, Workfare Income Supplement as well as Workfare Training Support Program, really is to supplement their income for retirement adequacy as well as to meet their short-term expenditure needs. And for Workfare Training Support Scheme is really to improve their employability through training. We also work with the employers through the Inclusive Growth Program, for instance in job redesign and redesign of the work processes so that they can get higher value jobs. And then in some sectors, where the market mechanism doesn't work because there's cheap sourcing. Right. So, better skills, better training, better productivity may not lead to better wages. So we are focusing our attention on these sectors too, and we have started with the cleaning sector. In terms of cleaning sector, we have worked with NTUC on the progressive wage model, so that the pay of the workers will be commensurate with their skills, training and productivity. And next year, we'll be implementing a licensing framework for the cleaning companies. We'll be then moving to other sectors, for instance, security and landscaping. And I think that, improving their skills and productivity to get higher wages really is a more sustainable way to raise their wages.
All right. Thank you very much for coming today. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Welcome.
And that's Dr. Amy Khor, Senior Minister of State from the Ministry of Manpower, on workforce numbers that just came out today.